how are you guys doing? I have some crazy news because recently we had the chance to check out The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And we had a hands-on with the game for about an hour, if not a little bit more. And this is, of course, extremely awesome. Loads of things happened. Everyone was having a great time. Everyone's experience was super different. And I'm just going to go in a little bit of detail about what my play session was like, because we actually will be seeing a little bit more from it in the days to come. And I will, of course, talk to you guys about, how my experience with the game has been. What I liked about it so much was being thrown into the deep almost, immediately. And it's important to note that we saw two demos of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. One of the demo, you were geared up in the middle of the Great Plateau, which is like the first area in the game after you exit the whole cave. But you were thrown in the middle of the whole wilderness, and there were wild boars running everywhere. You could do everything you wanted. And the second demo was kind of the beginning 20 minutes of the story. So making, your own choices, finding gear, you start with nothing and you build from there. In the first demo, you kind of have everything from the get-go and you get to experience a lot of the game in, its full glory, the demo. And there were also some amiibo present, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild amiibo, which were the three pairs, Link on the horse, Link with his trusty bow, and of course the Guardian. But there was also, of course, the Wolf Link amiibo from Twilight Princess HD, and we even got the chance to check that out in the game, which was super awesome because it turns into a trusty companion, which is not, I heard, related to the story at all. It's just something, like a cool bonus or a cool extra, and it looks really cool, and it kind of reminded me of Metal Gear Solid 5 or V, because you had a wolf companion in that one too. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was maybe a mechanical companion there too. So we'll see. That's for the future. So I want to talk a little bit about the first demo that I played, which was of course the one where you're geared up in the middle of the Great Plateau. You have most of all your gear. You have different clothing styles. You even have a lot of food on you to help you through the day. And I immediately just ran out into the distance. There was a lot of open space. I didn't really, think that would happen immediately. I've heard a lot of people talk about this game, being a bit too open and having a bit of empty space. And for a lot of the demo, that is true, unfortunately. But I do think it is for a reason. I was told very early to check out the map and see, where all the hotspots are in the demo. And to kind of, link those together, you do need to traverse these big lengths. And ultimately in the game, of course, they will probably be a lot more useful, and there will be probably a lot more things there. At this moment in time, there was just a bit too much dirt for me, too much plains, and the areas without grass were always kind of the most empty. There weren't these big of a forest parts in the demo at this point, so it kind of sometimes felt a little bit too empty. But at the moments where it didn't, the game really shone. I used my Sheikah Slate at the beginning. You can see the map, you can see where camps of bokoblins are, but you can also see items, you can also see cooking pots, so you can actually kind of plan your way. I'm going, to get some items, I'm going to cook something, I'll be ready for a fight, and I'll, go pick a fight with some enemies. In this cool camp. And mostly always where there's a big camp, there is a reason for you to defeat all the enemies there, which would be to get a new awesome item. And the demo was full of crazy cool items, because there were the axes, there were different swords, there was even a broadsword that you wield with two hands. And there was, of course, the cool fire rod, which was an item that I did not have the chance to check out because I didn't check the whole world. I only checked, I think, half of the demo. I felt immediately that it relied a lot on survival. More so than I thought, even from the trailer. You tried to find places to get out of bounds of the game, and sometimes with some pretty crazy results. I tried to kind of break the game at some points, or find places that would, kick me out of the demo, sort of, so that I could explore things that, you shouldn't. I'll talk a little bit about that later, but I did all the usual stuff. I cut down trees. You can even cut down trees with your sword, which I didn't think was possible, but you can if you are persistent about it, though it's much better to do it with a big axe. And I found the big axe, which was in a very cool old wooden shed, which actually felt very lived in, so I wouldn't be surprised if there were some AI guys there in the full game. And I found, of course, a lot of food there, which I could immediately cook in the pot. And with the axe, I cut down a big tree in just 3 hits, and the tree fell perfectly over a ledge, so I could tiptoe over it, and I didn't fall. I was very scared that I would, but I didn't. And a lot of other very cool things happened, but cooking for the most part is actually very creative. If you pause the menu, you press the plus button, you can select different items that you've collected, so they can be very crazy things like truffles, or they can just be like apples or mushrooms, and you can kind of link them together. So you don't just throw one thing in the pot, you may even throw 5 things, and you press the hold button on the menu, and Link will just have it in his hand, and you can place it on the pot. Sometimes you even have to, ignite the fire. So you pick up a stick or maybe a bokoblin club, and you set it ablaze, and then you turn on the fire. So it feels very realistic, in a sense that it isn't just all chewed out for you. You actually have to do some effort to, turn it on and, collect the items and put them together in a way that you want. And people were still finding new ways of getting ingredients together. So there are a lot of possibilities for people who are really into cooking. I'm not that good at it in real life, but in this game I made a very, very delicious mushroom dish, which actually healed me like 3 hearts or something. It was crazy awesome. And what I found is actually I was walking around with a bow that I had found because I climbed I think I climbed like the tower, the giant tower in the demo, which I think is called the Temple of Time, but it was all broken down, so I don't know if it's like the real Temple of Time. But anyway, I climbed it all the way to the top, and I found a cool bow, like a realistic, awesome, like not the one you start out with, but a very high-tech bow. And when I walked across a few torches, I actually set my arrows ablaze. So I immediately got fire arrows by just being creative, instead of, getting it to a few dungeons. And when I used those fire arrows and I shot it at a tree, I hit an apple, and that apple fell to the ground, but it was still on fire. And I managed to collect it just in time, and it turned into actually this roasted apple. And it healed me in different ways, and you can get different dishes with that thing. So there's loads of different combinations possible in just that own little cooking part of the game, and I think they will expand it a lot more because people seem to really like that aspect. And survival being this big of a part in Breath of the Wild, I think we're gonna see a lot more about how cooking can be this creative. And, talking about that part is, how Link is doing physically in this game is also extremely important. I noticed while playing, you of course have the temperature of Link's body on screen in the HUD display at your lower right. And this was actually extremely important. When I started climbing up a mountain, I suddenly noticed that it was getting a lot colder, and there were winds and breezes, and that Link was getting colder, of course. But once I kept walking and ignoring kind of that Link was getting cold, I started losing hearts. And I've known this from the trailer, I've known this from gameplay, so I thought I could just continue eating things and kind of, run my way through it. But that didn't really help because I was also getting attacked by bokoblins. So what I ended up doing was that I got a torch that I found somewhere, and I set it ablaze at a fire that I created because I threw a barrel at a barrel and the barrels exploded, and it was a barrel and the barrels exploded. Anyway, I kept myself warm with the torch because it was so close to my face. So there's a ton of different ways to keep yourself warm. You can, find new clothing. You can even eat hot peppers that kind of keep you warm. So how Link physically is doing is important to the game, and kind of also felt kind of like Metal Gear Solid to me. I think in Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, there was also, a very physical part about, feeding yourself, and this feels the same way. I even found like little lizard creatures, and there was one guy who joked, there are bugs in this game, and, he of course meant like real bugs that you can eat, and that was pretty cool. Further along, I thought one of the coolest parts, and not to talk about Metal Gear Solid too much, but there are things that are very similar. Link can now, of course, crouch walk. If you press in the left stick, Link starts to sneak. And you can sneak up on little camps of bokoblins, and sometimes, if you do it right, you won't get noticed. And you can do some pretty cool stuff, because you can steal from the bokoblins, but you can also kind of sneak up on them and defeat them in a creative way. You can shoot arrows to distract them to a different way. You can maybe throw a bomb, and there are bombs in this game that you can detonate later, and I found that very useful. So being sneaky is very cool in this game. I even found an instance where I found a team of bokoblins who were asleep. I even waited for the sun to go down for them to go to bed, which looked very cool. They were like yawning, and they were like, okay, let's all go to sleep together. And when they fell asleep, I kind of sneaked in their camp, and I first stole their meat. They had this gigantic chunk of meat that I stole, which I think heals 4 hearts, which I really needed at the time. And what I ultimately did, I just set everything on fire, and it just woke up in flames, and it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. I'm so mean in this game. So the other thing is, of course, shield surfing, which actually means you can use your shield to like surf on. You can stand on it, and if you're on a high mountaintop, you can surf down. However, I thought it was so cool that I was doing it all the time. I was even jumping over enemies. If you start to shield surf while you're running and you jump, you do this very cool flip in the air. You can even press the Y button to do like a 360 kickflip or something. Looks really cool, and I did it too much and I broke my shield because, yeah, of course, everything can break in this game, even, your normal sword. Also reminds me, you can throw all your weapons, kind of like what you do in The Wind Waker, if you have like an item from an enemy, so like a club or a big sword. In this game, I could even throw my normal sword, which, normally wouldn't be possible, and I thought that was a really cool addition. There was this enemy that I'd weakened down this much that he had just a little bit of health left, and I just waited for him, and I kind of readied my sword and I just threw it at his face, and it was a very satisfying moment, because just at that moment, that part of the demo was over. So time slowed down to show that the demo was over, but just the sword flying hit him in his face, and it was my little moment of victory. So yeah, being sneaky is awesome, your gear is awesome, but also combat in general is super satisfying in this game. What I found was actually that dodging in this game is a lot different because you have the jump in this game. I think with the X button you jump, and normally in Zelda, of course, you only jump when you are walking off a ledge or something. Now in this game, you can normally jump. If you run, you jump forward. If you normally jump, you have a very small, tiny jump. But in combat, it's a lot bigger, and you can do backflips. You can, of course, jump left and right, like in normal Zelda games. However, you can kind of do a double jump, kind of like Super Smash Bros. Style, where if you're fighting, you can jump forward, then slash. So Link will do like 2 jumps in the air because you have the normal jump button. So it can kind of throw your enemies for a loop, and you're doing all this superhuman stuff, which looks really cool. And not only are the moves awesome, and the sound effects and the flashes, which makes the world come to life, but there was also this moment where if an enemy charges at you and they look like they're about to attack, like the second they do that, there's a moment where you can kind of dodge. So if you jump back, you can actually trigger this moment, which is called a flurry rush. And in flurry rush, time slows down, but you don't. So Link can, lunge forward with his sword and just flurry down an enemy in multiple hits. And whenever time goes back to normal, that enemy just flies away very far. And with a new physics engine and the enemies ragdolling all over the place, sometimes that had some pretty crazy results. There was this one instance where I came to the camp of bokoblins that I think I wasn't supposed to see initially because it was very, very, very tough. There were even some bokoblins which had real swords and real shields. I think they were blue. And I fought this guy with my normal, I think even with a stick or something. And it was quite hard to get through, but I managed to defeat this guy by using all these cool tricks like dodging. And with his flurry rush, I defeated him, and he flew almost across the entire map. Like he almost like glitched. So I got that guy good. That felt very satisfying to me. So the combat has changed for the better, I think. They keep upgrading it every time, and I thought it was really cool already in Skyward Sword with the motion controls, but it doesn't need motion controls. It is just as awesome with just these cool flurry rush slow motion moments. And just the feeling of seeing your enemy in slow motion and you being all fast, that is pure Zelda magic right there. So to me, this is some little, criticism. Right here's where the negatives come, right? So everything is awesome, but the menu to me is sometimes a little bit clunky. There are a ton of buttons that you need to use. The whole D-pad is used for different parts of the menu. You use one for different stasises. So these are like different options of using your magnet power or your bomb power. There's one other for your different swords. So you keep constantly in your brain switching. Of course, I only had about an hour or an hour and a half with the game. So this could, of course, change once I have the game next year for maybe an X. But for now, it was kind of clunky. And to me, climbing felt a little weird sometimes because jumping has some getting used to, of course, because it's new in Zelda. But if you climb and you want to go, a little bit faster, it also depletes your stamina a little faster. But you can jump up while you climb. But that means you have to input two buttons that are below each other, above and below each other, which looked really clunky when I tried to do it, and I had to use almost both my hands to keep jumping and climbing, which was really weird. And it also sometimes happened with using, I think it was called Cryonis. It was a power-up that makes you spawn these cool blocks of ice out of water. And there were some instances where I needed to spawn something while at the same time jumping on it, and it left my hand in sort of a weird, crumpled up state. So that was kind of weird. I also thought it was sad there was no roll in this game because, rolling forward always made you, a little bit faster, but it was also a very cool dodging technique, and it just looked very cool. There's even instances in old Zelda games when you fall from very high up and you roll, you have no damage. I miss the roll. The roll was like a staple of modern 3D Zelda games. So yeah, bring back the roll, Nintendo, because you were on a roll. I'm sorry. So the graphics also, and this is, where I'm going to get a lot of hate, but the graphics, at least of this demo, kind of underwhelmed me. The scope of the game is very real. It's extremely big. There were a lot of moments where I used my Sheikah Slate to look around, which also has like a zoom function, so you can use it as like binoculars. I kept looking at like the cool Hyrule Castle, which was shrouded in darkness and looked really awesome. But to me, the graphics at a lot of points, I talked in the beginning a little bit about moments where the game felt a little bland and open without there being a lot of grass or characters there. And some textures are a little bit iffy to me. And I also thought at some points the art style, I wish it were like a little bit more realistic. friend of mine approached me and said, oh man, this game would look so cool if it was like realistic. And I didn't immediately share his opinion. I was like, well, this is Zelda. This is supposed to have this kind of cool, elevated, cel-shaded art style. That's what makes it Zelda, and not some other open world game, right? But then I started to think about it, and what if the lighting engine was a little bit better, and what if trees actually kind of look like trees a little bit more? So the more I started to think about it, graphics never really bother me, at least not in Nintendo games. I always turn that switch off, but sometimes it kind of underwhelmed me in this game. But as I said, the scope of the whole game makes up for it. There's a little bit of pop in when you approach bigger parts and big, wooded areas, but for the most part it didn't really bother me that much, and it looks like a big step up from games like Skyward Sword, and it kind of looks like a brother to Wind Waker HD, kind of the same feeling. So I talked about this very first demo, which was you all geared up and you have everything from the start. There was also the second demo, which was the story demo, and you start off with the first 20 minutes of the game, which is Link, of course, waking up in, I think it was called the Shrine of Resurrection, or the Room of Resurrection, and Link wakes up in this water, in this bath, and supposedly he's resurrected. Now, I don't know much about the story of this game. I don't think anyone at this point does. But it kind of feels like they're trying to bring the hero back, like times were rough in Hyrule. We need you right now. Please come back to us, Link, as presumably Zelda says, Link, open your eyes. Thought that was really cool. I really missed voice acting in the demo, even talking to the old man out there, which totally is an old generation Link, right? Or is it like Ganon? Is it like Ganondorf? Anyway, I thought that was a really cool part. But yeah, going out into the world without gear is extremely hard. So you make the decision at the start of the game to pick up these clothes or not. You can also do a naked run of the game if you so please. I didn't. But running into the wild without a sword and a shield, but still, you keep running. I was playing the demo and I just wanted to see more of the world and I wanted to share more with you guys, so I kind of forgot to pick up weapons. And so I came to camps of bokoblins without weapons, and right then it started to get really hard, and it was immediately noticeable for me. There were some enemies that just killed me with one hit. I think I was talking about a bokoblin that was blue. I think he hit me once and I had 5 or 4 hearts and I was just dead. So going out into the wild in your first try, you better be, better be crazy good gamer. I ultimately went to a camp of bokoblins with a sort of a cave that looked like a skull, and I went in without any gear, but I picked up this one barrel, and there were loads of bokoblins there, aiming their arrows at me, and I picked up the barrel and I just threw it at one of the guys, which made him bounce back and drop his club. So I grabbed his club, which suddenly meant I had a weapon, for the first time in this playthrough, which was my first weapon of the game, which was this random club from a guy. And I started just wailing on the rest and just using all my cool tricks and slow motion flurry rushes to the test. And I actually, every time I defeated a new enemy, I got a cooler weapon. And then I defeated the blue bokoblin, which gave me the sword. So I got a lot more powerful. I gained arrows and a bow from another guy. And suddenly I just had this whole little camp ruined, because I was just persistent. And this was my first playthrough of the game, and it was quite hard. And it actually granted me with a very cool bow full of arrows. So it was kind of my experiment to kind of see where can you go from the game, from the get-go, if you don't, talk to the old man, if you don't do anything, if you just run forward and do your thing. And I wasn't disappointed. It was hard. I think in total, in my hour and a half, I died 3 times, one of which I accidentally walked off the world, and I just fell forever. Which was my bad. But the other times I got bested. One of the times I was actually walking through a maze and I saw eyes light up. This whole cutscene starts of this old artifact from the ground, getting this blue-red glow. And I was like, oh man, this is a guardian. I'm gonna have to fight a guardian. This is awesome. I have a shield with me. And then I had this wooden shield and he just shot right through it. And he killed me in one hit. And then I was like, well, I'm never doing that again. Goodbye, guardian. So that was it. One of the craziest things that I did, which caught a lot of attention from the people there, was there's this tool called magnesis, right? And magnesis is a sort of a giant magnet tool that can lift these iron objects, metal. And you can manipulate them in the air and you can kind of place them wherever you want, which is really cool, but it got me thinking, what is possible with this? So I tried to lift myself up in some instances, to get infinite, troll physics flying in the air, which didn't work. Well, it sort of worked at one point. It kind of looked like I had sort of a helicopter going, but it only went so far. So I fished out of the water with magnesis this very cool treasure chest. And I put the treasure chest down, and because that has like a sleek surface, a rounded surface, I grabbed another part of metal, which was this long bar, and I grabbed it out of the water, and I kind of put it on the chest. It kind of looked like one of those seesaws, where you stand on one end, and I used magnesis to grab a big rock, which, it was just a chunk of metal, and I lifted it up very high in the sky, like as far as, even above the trees, and I just dropped it. And it landed on one part of it, and I catapulted myself very, very high in the sky, and everyone was laughing, and I landed in the water, and I was like, man, if I had the paraglider at this moment, I could probably have soared through the end of the game straight to Hyrule Castle and just beat Ganondorf and rescue Zelda. That felt really cool. We tried it a bunch more times afterwards, and we came up with some pretty creative ways to use that catapult. And I think at that moment, I got my calling, and I coined the term the slink shot. So the Link slink shot. I thought that was pretty cool. Pretty clever. So all in all, I actually, finishing thoughts, I wish I just had this game at home. We've only seen 1% of the game. And that's what they're telling us. The open world is gigantic. There's a lot to do. There's different ways to survive and to keep, to take care of yourself and battle enemies. And even with more than an hour of playtime, I don't think I've even seen half the demo. So think about that 1% of the game quote, and I'm getting my head spinning. So thank you guys for checking out Blocked Content. We're going to be seeing a lot more from The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild in the coming days. Please subscribe. Please place a comment. Let us know what you like, what you want to see, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.